Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Skill Me Up expert talk for cloud silver linings, extending the cloud into the physical realm. In this session, we're going to be talking about Azure Stack a lot. My name is Kit Skinner. I'm a senior cloud training architect for Opsagility, the Azure training experts behind skillmeup.com. Prior to joining Opsagility, I spent over 6 years providing Azure field consulting and over 15 years direct IT roles, designing, running, managing infrastructure and security. Feel free to reach out to me at any time on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter at Azure SMFX, as well as LinkedIn at Smallfox. Feel free to reach out to any of those connections. As I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about Azure Stack. We're going to go through the Azure Stack family, what it encompasses. We're going to dive a little bit into the Azure Stack Hub, as well as go over the Azure Stack Edge, and then where Stack's futures leaning towards at the moment. So the Azure Stack family. Now, keep in mind the Azure Stack, the whole point is to be able to bring those resources from Azure that you have available today and only do that resources that you're looking for in your on-premise environment. So if there's some reason that you couldn't run it in the cloud for some reason, you can now bring that to the on-premise environment and utilize it however you need to with your hardware there. So again, the idea behind Azure Stack is that we have a hybrid environment that we're going to be running your resources on premise and being able to connect to Azure in the cloud when needed. So with the Azure Stack, there's three primary areas that you have of different types of stack that's available today. You have your Azure Stack Edge, which is an appliance, usually a small device, something that's actually distributed out into the realm, whether it be in a mobile appliance of some kind, or maybe in just a very remote location. These could even be something like an oil rig in the middle of the ocean, or it could be in a hospital in a critical care ward. These devices are designed to be small. For the most part, there's going to be some ones we're going to talk about that aren't so small. But the idea is that they can be remote. They don't have to be in a traditional data center. The idea is that they're able to go out directly to the edge. They don't have to be somewhere in a metropolitan area. They don't have to be in a area that needs a whole lot of connectivity or a lot of resources and management area. The Azure Stack HCI is something that's relatively new for Azure Stack, especially the current implementation as currently in public preview. HCI, it stands for Hyperconverged Infrastructure, where basically the idea behind it is that you don't really focus on your physical network connections or your physical data connections for your throughput, your storage environment. It all becomes extremely virtualized, and you basically have a single pipe where you're doing all your communications, whether it be network communications, remote management, storage. All that is just done through a large pipe so that it's easy to pull things in and out. So it's all converged into a single infrastructure. It doesn't really matter what you're needing. You need more storage, you connect over to the storage. You need compute, you connect to the compute. It's all just hyperconverged. And then the more, I guess, traditional stack, you might say, is the Azure Stack Hub. The idea behind the Azure Stack Hub is that you basically have a rack or a set of equipment that's going to be in a traditional data center that you would utilize much like you would any other set of equipment. It's a very pre-configured, very pre-configured set of hardware. It's got a very demanding configuration that they have set up with vendors to come in and just basically place this hub into your data center, and it allows you to have pretty much all the Azure services directly there in your data center. It allows for, like it says, it can be connected or disconnected from the internet. It allows you to have your data in your environment. So if there's a geopolitical concern, or if there's some sort of data reliability or security needs that you have, you can put this into that area and still have all your Azure services, but still allows you to do all your modernization. So when we're looking to do the stack, we're looking to do it wherever it needs to be. Azure is setting up new data centers constantly. There's several throughout the entire globe. But invariably, there's going to be some scenarios where Azure just isn't either in the right geographical region, it isn't maybe in the right country, maybe the connections just aren't fast enough, or maybe there's just some other reason that you need to have Azure in an environment. You can't put it in the cloud. The idea behind Stack is that we take all those services and all those pieces that Azure utilizes and be able to deploy into your data center wherever it needs to be. Um, and then ultimately, the goal is rather than having to build something that works in the cloud and then something that maybe works on premise or something that works over in your client's data center or something that works over in some other environment, once you build it to run in Azure, you can run an Azure Stack. So the idea being is that it doesn't matter where you deploy your solution. It doesn't matter what hardware it's on top of. It doesn't matter what their network requirements are. As long as you've built it to run on the stack, it will run there. Now, obviously, if there's requirements to get out to the outside world, yeah, you may not be able to get to the outside world, but as long as you have your databases, your data storage, all those things defined in your Azure deployment, it can run in your Azure Stack there locally on that island. So all of your AI deployments, all of your web app setups, any SQL configurations that you have, any Hadoop type structures, anything that you have out there that you would want to run in Azure, but you just can't because they can't connect to the cloud, you can run in Azure Stack. Another nice way to utilize Stack is to transition from your legacy applications into the cloud. Many times you have an existing app that's on premise. Maybe it's connected to your manufacturing, or it's connected to just a legacy data source, and it's not practical to get that information into the cloud. Either it's a latency issue or just a legacy issue, but you still want to be able to modernize your application. In this type of scenario, what you can do is you can deploy your Stack services into your data center. And it allows you then to develop modern applications, so you can take advantage of things like serverless functions, Kubernetes, web services, VMs, even WVD, the virtual desktop solution that they have now. All of those can run on top of Azure Stack. So if you want to start utilizing VDI, or you want to start moving into an AKS, the Kubernetes container structure, you can go ahead and start doing it on Stack, be able to have access to your legacy application, and start being able to ingest that data directly into Stack. Now, if you want to eventually then move it to the cloud and be able to take advantage of those resources in the cloud, you can slowly progress to that state. But this at least gives you that stepping stone maybe to get to that point. And again, once you've designed your application to run in Stack on premise, as you get that data into there and you migrate it up to Azure, you can move those applications into the Azure cloud, and it'll continue to run. All right, so that's generally what Stack is about. Now, we're going to dive a little bit more into one particular classification that we have for Stack. In this case, we're talking about Stack Hub. And it's probably more the traditional Stack that maybe people are used to. The first implementations that were out there, it ran in your data center, ran on very specialized hardware, but it's continued to expand and beyond that. But the Azure Stack, it's an extension directly of the Azure platform. It allows you to be able to utilize the innovations of cloud computing, whether it be your serverless pieces, your storage environment, all those can be run on the Stack Hub. It can build that into that and help you have that flexibility and just expand on the existing data center. So everything that would be in your cloud, you can pull into your data center. It's consistent. The same tools that you have in your on-premise environment, or that you would use in Azure in the past, you can use in your Azure Stack on-premise. They have the same portal, same APIs, same development tools. You're continuing to use Azure Resource Manager, so you can continue to use your ARM templates. Anything that you built around that and if you use third-party tools like Terraform or Jenkins or any other sort of deployment tools, you can utilize those. The upcoming Bicep, those will continue to run on Azure Stack. All those types of things continue to do the same thing. And on top of it, the Azure services, they're out there in the marketplace today. You can run that on Stack Hub. So if there's some sort of solution that is out there in the marketplace that you want to run on premise, but you just can't run in the cloud, you can actually deploy those to your Azure Stack. Obviously, that means you need to bring down templates or whatever applications that would need to run, but it can be deployed to your Stack Hub. And then your cloud infrastructure, so it's integrated by design. We can utilize all of the pieces in your existing environment and be able to have just your cloud environment extend down into it. So you can continue to use all those pieces that you're looking for in your existing environment and be able to utilize your networking, your bandwidth. If you already have failover data center designs, you can continue to do that by having hubs in each environment. And on top of it, you can then have maybe virtual machines in the cloud and on-premise. And it almost gets treated like another region with Azure. So whereas you might deploy to East US or West US or, Central Asia, something like that, one of those regions, instead you can do your deployments to your Stack Hub. And you can define which Stack Hub you're going to. So it's the exact same concepts. You just bring it down into your data center. The idea that we want to do is try and make it as universal to where all the tools and development that's been focused around the infrastructure that is Azure, all those pieces, you can bring those down to your data center environment. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's in the right version, whether or not you got the right tools to be able to do it. If it runs in Azure, it can run in Stack Hub. Again, we're trying to be consistent here. We're trying to make sure things are the same. We want to make sure that everything, all the deployments, everything you've done in the past, it's all same, whether it be automation, operations, system center, Sentinel, all those things. We want to make sure it's the same no matter which way you're doing this. And then again, Azure services, whether it be IoT Hub, serverless app service, Kubernetes, something in the marketplace, your Key Vault, your Event Hub, virtual machines, all that we want to continue to run on Hub. So we want to make things consistent for the environments. We want to make sure that everything that you've already done to work in the cloud or other people have done in the cloud, you can bring that now to your on-premise environment and be able to utilize that, whether it be the dynamic growth, being able to spin up things on the fly. If you find that you're reaching the capacity of your hub, you can just bring another one in, stick it next to it, and you can then start deploying resources to that one. And it's, again, just like in Azure, if you need to deploy additional resources, you just spin those up and add them to the environments. And then again, the integration, and we talked about that a little bit. We're really trying to make sure that the hardware, the topology, everything that we bring in, the validation, your security, your Azure AD, all that can be done directly within Azure Stack. You can have the parts, since you're now managing the hardware because it is in your data center, the parts can just be brought out and replaced. Everything in it is redundant. So if there's a particular server that goes out, well, that server can be, pulled out, and another server can be brought in. Stack continues to run. The standard failover policies would need to be in place of, if you had a computer running on that node and it just had a hard crash, you may have to spin it up on the new node, but it could be spun up automatically. That would be about the worst case scenario. Your data is actually stretched between the different devices. There's automatic live migration. So if you know that you're going to be replacing a piece of hardware because it's old or is throwing up some errors, you can pull everything off of that piece of hardware and have no interruption. So those are the types of things that can happen in the environment. The patching, the updates, it's just like what happens in Azure today. You can have your automation updates out there. You can have the management do the deployment on the machines. You do the rolling deployment so that if you have multiple hubs in the environment, you can make sure that you move everything from one hub to another hub, and then you patch that one and then move things back. If you want to, they're not going to patch all the hosts at the same time, and it can do a rolling patching, so you can make sure that all your systems remain up. And again, the idea is that this is basically minimal management for you. This is built into the environment. It's supposed to be relatively simple for you. The whole idea hub is almost like getting an exact copy of Azure down in your data center. And we're just trying to make this as simple, clean for the end users as possible. Then that comes into the Stack Edge. Now, Stack Edge is something that's designed to be a very portable type of solution, something that's coming directly down to your end environment. It's designed to be very close to your actual deployment scenarios, whether it be, again, something that's IoT, Internet of Things, something that is out in the field. There's many solutions that we want to have, try and get the Azure Stack as close as possible to whatever is happening in your environment. Again, the edge of the internet. So the idea here still is that we want to make it as simple as possible. We're going to manage devices from Azure, use your Azure tools. You deploy and manage them. At the edge, you can use Kubernetes, you can do the multi-node rather. You can have virtual machine support. There's NVIDIA options, so you can have accelerated devices out there. You can also use the storage gateway for local cache and automatically upload it. So the idea here is that rather than having a entire storage account deployed to this device and then having to have some sort of job doing a replication, you can actually set up a cache or gateway on your edge device and say, okay, I want to make sure this share, this file share, for example, is replicated to Azure. And as soon as that edge device gets disconnected for whatever reason, maybe because it's moving, lost connectivity, shut down, whatever, that data is there locally on the machine, and then they boot it up. They may not have connection to the internet, but they have access to all that data that was in that cache, the local cache environment. They do whatever updates they need to be done, and then when they connect back to the internet, as soon as that edge is connected back and it syncs back up to Azure Cloud, it's immediately put in the cloud. So then you can have resources that come out and pull that data that was out in the field. So I mean, there's just a few examples of some of them out here. You have kind of a stack set of servers. Then you have a tactical 1U device, right, that's got a UPS underneath it, and then you have a small edge device that is actually fits inside of a backpack. And these are all running Azure. And the idea being is that it doesn't matter what your needs be, whatever your solution is, you can go ahead and run it in the environment, and then it will synchronize back to the Azure cloud. So again, edge, you're looking, a lot of times you're going to be in a disconnected environment. This is something that is going to happen. That not sure why some of these details are on here. Anyways, the edge device, the disconnected states, you would be having the actual Azure environment separate from the Azure Stack Edge. So what you're going to run into in these types of scenarios is that you have the actual Azure, the edge environment is going to be disconnected periodically. So you have your computing that still happens whether you're connected to the actual cloud or not, but the stack is close to it. And as an example, they use an airplane. They've talked about, while airplanes have a lot of satellite communications, you could have a small edge appliance on the aircraft gathering telemetry. Maybe you have particular sensors that you're doing testing on, or there's some sort of observations that's being done. It could be any sort of vehicle, whether it be a four-wheeler out in the rugged terrain because they're doing some field studies, or you have an emergency type of environment where you have EMS out and they're doing for instance, a drone that would have artificial intelligence to help identify a particular emergency situation. And you want to utilize AI to be able to uh, get the images that are coming off of the drones, for instance, and you want to be able to do that computing. Those environments, a lot of times you aren't going to have the full access to the cloud, but you could design those applications to run in Azure and then run in Azure containers, and you could deploy those containers down to the Azure Stack. And then that stack could gather that information, tag all that, and then when it gets connected finally back, whether it be through satellite or mobile communications, eventually Starlink, whatever, it'll automatically replicate up into Azure, and then you can have your analysis come over and communicate those details then. So another advantage in the tactical is what they call tactical edge. And the big thing about the tactical edge pieces is that these are the devices that are available for doing a rugged type of deployment, whether it be a data center or cloud appliance or an edge appliance. The idea here is that you have your stack edge at the lower end and your hub at the higher end. So in these types of environments, you can actually have a very ruggedized type of setup that's dropped into an emergency type of situation, something that maybe there isn't a very reliable type of setup. Maybe it's something that is a hazardous type of situation. You want to make sure that they have hardware, but you know it may be getting damaged. And those types of environments those types of devices provide the control for those pieces. This is an example of just a core edge structure. The idea here being, again, you have your traditional Azure resources up in the cloud, and these can be your Kubernetes, your cloud resources, storage, whatever it is, connecting to other Azure services. Very complex type of setup that you've just evolved over time, something that you've had out there. You could take a lot of these Kubernetes pieces then and deploy those to an edge appliance. And you can utilize a lot of the computing here locally and be able to utilize it. And no matter what you're connecting to in that type of edge setup, they can continue to utilize Azure services even if the connection is lost to the cloud. And this maybe the connection's not lost. Maybe it's just a very limited connection, and you need to make sure that you're optimizing what data is getting processed here locally and utilizing your local storage. And then only those things that are vital that need to be uploaded, those are the pieces that get synchronized up. So rather than having to worry about getting a full high definition stream that's constantly processed coming off of a camera somewhere, and having it look for constant data, you could have that processed at the edge, and then those frames, those pieces that are found to be key, whether it be a field study or whatever, you can get that high definition pieces and grab those key frames and then ship those up. So rather than having to transmit a high definition stream that's several gigabytes, you can transfer a single high definition image that is a few megabytes. And this is the type of thing that you can utilize the edge appliance for, even in a connected scenario. And then obviously in a disconnected scenario where you have something that's going to do some sort of communication, for instance, like in a manufacturing environment, there's a lot of times where people want to try and identify the machines that are being utilized, how things are going through the environment. There's even just basic metrics of how things are being consumed, what the load is, and those are very important things that have to be kept track of, so you can let the different processes in your company know where reorders are happening, where additional pieces need to be brought in. But those factories sometimes are not in the best of environments for communications. So you can deploy just a small edge appliance there to gather and collect all that data, and it can make sure that it gets communicated to the cloud as it's available. So if you have a limited bandwidth, it can make sure that that data is coming across what's needed. And you're not having to worry about getting all that up to a cloud compute environment. And the nice thing about it is that it's not like you had to design something on a local machine, figure out how to get to work locally there, and then get that data into Azure and run a totally different process in Azure. You can have the same process run in both places. So you don't have to worry about what's running in those different types of pieces. So those are just kind of the high level things of the existing Stack environment, whether it be Stack Hub or Stack Edge, um, and those sorts of Stack pieces that are out there. Um, Again, the Stack Hub is something that you're usually going to do more like a data center, but they have the full availability of Azure in the environment, whereas Stack Edge is more of a limited type of setup. You're looking mostly more at your containers and your smaller pieces, Kubernetes, because you're dealing with smaller appliances. And that's kind of where those two pieces fall at, is that you have an edge to take care of your small compute environments, your hub to basically mirror your Stack setup. But there's also more that they're looking to do in the future, especially in the very near future. That's Azure Stack HCI, and that's a public preview. And HCI stands for Hyperconverged Infrastructure. And in this hyperconverged infrastructure, you're looking to actually have the communications happen directly. Doesn't matter what type of hardware piece you're running. It can run the communications across your connector for both your data and your networking pieces. And it treats those different pieces in the HCI configuration as another node, another resource to grab connections. Again, we're trying to seamlessly manage it directly like we would anything else in Azure. We're going to be able to consolidate all your workloads and do on-premise environment and hardware. If you're not going to look to the cloud, maybe you have a lot of old HCI hardware and you want to repurpose it and reutilize it. You can actually do that. There's 20 over 20 hardware vendors today that are building HCI to begin with, but there's a lot of repurposing that you can even do with some of your older hardware. So if you want to refactor some of that and be able to run the Azure Stack on premise, you can actually do HCI on premise. And a quick example of the structure that we have here is that you have your hybrid services. So you have things like your site recovery, your backup, your update, your file sync, and your Azure Security Center. All of those are, by definition, they kind of need to be in the cloud, managed in the cloud. But HCI Stack, you can do a lot of things like your Hyper-V, software-defined services, and your software-defined networking, your storage rather, software-defined storage, and your networking can all be run within your Azure Stack and can manage those via admin center. And then obviously the Azure Arc is now the central platform where you can utilize it. So rather than having to worry about doing it through Portal or doing it through the admin center, you can do it all through the Azure Arc. The nice thing about Azure Stack HCI is that you can immediately put in stretch zones. So if you have something that's built up in a particular data center that you want to be able to build out and perhaps have two data centers and be able to move resources from one data center to the other in the event of disaster, just load balancing, patching, whatever, you can actually stretch your HCI cluster very easily, where as long as you have the proper connections as far as bandwidth goes, you can have your HCI in two different environments and two different data centers and be able to stretch that as one entity as far as Azure Stack is concerned. But you can move resources from one to the other. What this allows you to do is have highly reliable and failover pieces in your environments, but still be able to run everything that you would want to run on Azure. You can utilize this even for Windows Virtual Desktop and do VDI type of solutions. So if you have a lot of old hardware that you still have in existence, but you want to repurpose for VDI, you can build up the Azure Stack, and rather than having to try and define out the storage structure for the different profiles and figure out all the different compute allocations for that, you can build out your WVD on top of Azure Stack HCI and be able to distribute your loads directly that way. Another common scenario is that people want to try and bring in their own hardware because they're familiar with a particular type of a set of hardware. Maybe it's not something that's as well as Stack Hub. Maybe it's you have a bunch of HP servers. That's what you're built around. You're doing everything through ProLine structures, and you want to make sure that you continue to reuse that same hardware. So maybe you have a cache of disks around, and you want to continue to use that same infrastructure. HP ProLiants are available to run Stack HCI, so you can use the exact same servers that maybe you aren't running Stack. You have something else out there that you have another set, but you want to reuse that same hardware so that it doesn't matter. If you want to expand one or the other, you just have the same inventory SKU number and you slot that in. You may have a set of drives around that you can replace it on the fly, and so you want to have that same hardware consistency. You can do that with Azure Stack HCI. So it doesn't really matter what type of hardware it is. And the other nice thing is that right now it's in public preview. You can go out and download this. You can put Azure Stack onto your own hardware and take a look at Azure Stack HCI in existing pieces. So whether it's an existing environment you're looking to make change, maybe something you're looking to update, all that is potentially available to you in the HCI environments. So again, we kind of went over the Azure Stack family, the Azure Stack Hub, Stack Edge, looking towards some of the Stack's future. Anybody here have any questions in the live session? All right. Well, thank you very much for listening to this expert talk on Azure Stack Edge. My name is Kit Skinner, and this has been a presentation for Skill Me Up Training. Thank you.